Hey guys, it is Tim with Tabletop Terrors, and this is episode 4 of Destroy Artifact. We're calling it the minimum effective dosage, which probably sounds a little weird, but I don't know. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation that might help you feel less stressed about the pace at which you're creating.
Exactly.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So we've mentioned before that there are no real secrets to writing, but the one thing we haven't told you is there is a secret to writing. It's the supplement that Tim and I take, and we take the minimum effective dosage.
That's it. And so it is, it's called Eye Bleeder Monsters. No.
In all seriousness, there is no secret to creating, and this podcast is all about creating, and specifically the things that Tim and I run into and the say tips that we can give based on our own personal experience about creating. In this case, right. I think we're talking sort of about writing, and we're talking about something that I've heard referred to as the 80-20 principle.
Yes.
You want 20% of your effort to create, in this case, 80% of what you're doing. The reason that's important is because 20% is when you get beyond that, in our instance, you'll say, it's easy to become inefficient. That outside of that is when you keep changing this one sentence before your rough draft is done.
Exactly.
Or you keep you changing the characters' names before you even know what they're going to be doing. There is something to be said about just creating and seeing what happens afterward. But it's all about efficiency.
Right. And so, and I think especially the last few episodes have been really about the thing I think that writers struggle with the most, which is get your butt in the chair.
Yeah.
A lot of people just think about writing or creating or drawing or sculpting, because life gets in the way. What do they say? Life is what happens in between plans.
Yeah.
So the concept here is we thought, okay, well, let's temper this. Okay, we just gave, all these people advice about, grind away, you gotta do it. But there's something to be said about being efficient so that you're not spending those times that you do have to write, that you do schedule, on the wrong things.
Exactly.
So the 80-20 principle is what James is talking about. And for me, because we're co-founders, we're 2 out of the 4 founders of Absolute Tabletop. So you could check out, we have RPG supplements on absolutetabletop.com, and that's what we do. We write 5th edition or system agnostic RPG supplements. So we always have something in the pipeline. We always have something we're working on. But time can be scarce.
Yeah.
And there's always something interesting that has my imagination that I'm, it's captured. But how do I stay focused when I'm like, all right, from 10 to 11 p.m., I'm going to write? How do I stay focused? So that's exactly what James said, because we've all been there. You start, you crack your knuckles. Let's see if I can get a... Nope. No
not
knuckle
even
cracks.
Not
Didn't
even
even get. Nope. So you start, you sit down and you go, okay. Tor ran down the hallway with the orb. No, I don't want it to be an orb. What does Tor have? It's Tor's a stupid name. Hold on. Let me see here.
Tim talks to himself.
Grimrock. No, that's orcish. Let's see here. Let me Google.
Grimrock is also the name of a prison in a video game.
Well,
the Legend of Grimrock.
Oh, no. James messages me. Grimrock's the name of a prison. And I delete. I'm
and
like,
then
okay.
you find yourself on Wikipedia. You're like, all right, what's a name that isn't the name of a prison?
Let me look up. Hold on. Let me look up the Icelandic origins of the Viking word to get this name for this character that's running down the hallway carrying the orb that you want to change to a sword. And it's like
30 minutes later, an hour later when you're done writing,
you have done nothing except obsess over the single sentence that you've written. And that is why you feel like you're a bad writer.
Exactly. Because you didn't get anything done. I spent an hour writing, I didn't get anything done. Well, it's important if you spend an hour writing to do your best to, as efficiently as possible, spend an hour writing.
So let me tell you what I do. Let me free your mind right now.
Free your mind.
Tor ran down the hallway carrying the orb. Brackets. I don't know if this will be an orb. End brackets.
Boom.
Okay, great. no one's going to see this. This is for me. I'm writing this for me at first. I need to get the idea out.
Yeah.
This is about slapping the paint on the canvas. You know, it's like this is not refined work, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, it's not. This is not the final draft, exactly.
So, to me, that's the 20% when it comes to writing, is making sure that when you sit down and say, all right, I'm going to be creative, and we talked about this a little bit, like, you know, a little bit in all the other episodes, but I want to make sure you know, in a very tangible way, you should make sure that you get through at least a paragraph or two, hopefully a page, before you touch it. I totally have to sneeze. Yeah, but sorry.
It's fine.
Okay, one more. Okay, I'm trying not to sneeze.
I know, but you could just...
Sorry,
you're going to edit it out anyway.
I'm not going to edit that out.
Oh, okay. Well, that's Tim sneezing, everybody.
Sorry, guys.
I was pretty sure that... I thought you could just sneeze. That's fine.
Nah.
So, this brings up
wearers.
This brings up an interesting point because, like you said, in previous episodes, we have talked about getting your butt in the chair. And this is to get those ideas on the paper. But I think this principle also applies to getting those ideas, because if you sit down to write for an hour and you don't have any ideas, which, let's face it, is impossible.
Yeah.
You don't have any ideas, or maybe you just can't remember the one that you really thought. That is not the time. Writing time is not the time to think of ideas. It's going to come to you but you should, when you write down, you should have something already to be writing. I think that also, for me, falls outside of that 20%. Is no, when I sit down to write, I should be writing. You
exactly.
might stop for a minute and you think, or maybe look something up. You should do your best to stay off the internet, or at least I do. But I think that writing time has to be writing.
Totally. And so I can speak to this because I was in a band, and I want to talk to you about the writing process of the band. Now, in this podcast, we're going to get to what we mean exactly and precisely by the minimum effective dosage. We're going to give you actual tips that you can apply. But I think it's important to really get some context here, because what we're telling you is from our creative woes. These are things I regret.
Yeah.
These are
mistakes I have made.
Yes. So I'm telling you this because I wish someone would have told me this.
Yeah.
So, in the band, we'd have a very limited amount of time to write songs.
Yeah, that you were all, the four of you were in a room together. There was
exactly.
limited time.
And so, with that said, I cannot ever, there's not a single time in the 7 years we played together that I can say, yeah, man. And then one of us said, what should we write? And the other one said, I don't know, plunka, 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 and it turned out well.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything, I can recall at least 2 or 3 times where it was like, well, that was worthless.
Exactly.
But if I've done my homework, here's when it did turn out well. And we learned this, and we made this part of our writing process. The guitarists typically wrote the riffs or the chords. Our bass player was super good. We called him Shred Lord Fleaburton. His name was Jordan. But dude was like it's like a music theory machine. We used to make the joke where we'd like pretend we were punching computations into his forehead, and we were saying that like that a little ticker tape would come out of his mouth with like chords on it. But we found out, hey, go home, woodshed, come up with that cool riff. Then when we get together to write, it's like, hey, what have you guys been working on? Jordan, you got anything? Yeah, I've got this tasty riff. That's like, and then he would play it, and it's like, with intricacies, complexity, and a measure of identity that's very difficult to capture improvisationally.
Yeah, it came to him where he was noodling, where he had an idea when he was working, and he sat down and wrote it. You guys didn't just get together and say, all right, Jordan or Tim or somebody spit something out, just be creative on the spot, go. It's like, no, you need to bring something. There has to be something in order to make the minimum effective dosage. Like, that's sort of the minimum effective dosage of your practice session. It's like, we need something. But you don't need to go home and write a full song.
Right.
But you need to bring us something.
Exactly. And that's where, from there, because you've got this spark, you've got this cool riff, then my brother Thomas would say, oh, cool, I'm hearing this. And start to, hey, can we put a tail end on it so that it kind of has this reset? Or, oh, what if we go to halftime here? And then our drummer would hear that and start coming up with a beat. And then we're writing. Then we're making a song. But that piece, that sort of seed, that seed is a great way to put it, is something that you shouldn't, like you're saying, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, all right, I've got my hour. What you should be doing during that hour is watering the seed.
Exactly.
So this brings up something that James and I call the idea net. Here's what happens to writers all the time. They have 5, 7, 10 ideas a day.
Other numbers that exist.
Other numbers. None of them actually make it to a Word doc or an email.
Yeah, they don't even get to the seed phase.
Nope.
Because they don't get written down.
Right. And this, let me tell you the fallacy. You want to hear the lie of all lies? I'll remember that.
Oh, man. I have told myself and others that lie enough times to know that it's like, because even if you remember the idea, even if you get lucky and remember some of it, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
You are not going to remember all of the intricacies or the thing that made it cool.
Nope.
Something's going to get lost.
This is, let me tell you, you're listening to this right now and you know I'm talking to you. You're in bed. You just closed your eyes. Because I don't know what it is, but during my, like, when I'm sort of like half asleep or just kind of half waking up, I get these crazy ideas. Maybe it's because I like my stupid brain turns off and my imagination actually gets to just roam free. But I'll be under the blankets and I'll just be all nuzzled up. Oh, man. And then I'll be like, oh, that's a really cool name. I'll remember it tomorrow. And what happens tomorrow?
You don't even remember that you had an idea.
You don't even remember that you had an idea until you have that moment where the camera pans out and your eyes widen when someone else mentions like, oh, dude, I had this cool name for it. And you're like, so stop doing this. These ideas, they'll go away. This is even worse. Remember in a couple episodes ago when we were saying like, write it now or it'll die?
Yeah.
This is the step before that. Like he's saying, the seed dies.
Yeah, write it down now so that it can be born eventually.
Right. But so how do you keep track of your ideas to go to that shelf, that storage room, the seed barn, whatever we call it?
The seed barn.
Let's keep this analogy going strong. Where do you keep those ideas so that when it's like, hey, I got 2 hours to write, I'm really going to just hammer this into the dirt. Grab the seed and drop it into the soil and start.
Well, I mean, like real writers, like they don't have to write things down. Like they don't, just like they remember them. This is not true at all.
I was looking at you like, what?
Because, and again, I feel like to me, one of the most important things, the things that I wish I knew is like, I thought, man, if only I were a real writer. Like, well, if you sit down and you write something, you're a writer. You may not be a published writer and you may not be a famous writer.
You might not even be a great writer.
But you are a writer. You have done it. If you put paint on a canvas, you are a painter.
Yeah.
And so
many photographers know.
If you have a Facebook page, you're a photographer, Tim.
Well, that's what I'm saying is it's...
All you need is a Facebook page and a bad watermark, and you are a photography business. You don't even need an LLC.
And that, you know what?
Handmade business cards? Come on.
Well, and I'm gonna, because I want to get to where you keep your idea horse with the seeds in his satchel. But the thing that I was going to say is, I've said this multiple times and I'll continue to say it, there's something about perseverance that mediocre people are doing. They're living your dream because they just persevered. They just kept going.
Yeah.
There are things that I'll read and I'll be like, oh, this is fine. And I'll see that it's like a bestseller. And I'm not saying that I'm any kind of critic, but I'm saying I don't personally enjoy it much or see what the whole hubbub is. And I'm pretty easy to please. Like, also, I don't want you to think...
Okay.
All right, you get me. I'm not some elitist jerk.
The idea is that you're looking at a bestseller, and in your mind, and whether this is true or not, you're thinking, this is something that I could have done if only I would have spent my writing hour writing.
Correct.
Rather than...
That's the best way to put it. Let me back it up and be really honest. It's not that I don't like it. It's that I'm like, I feel like I could have done this or done it a little better.
Exactly. But
I didn't.
There is a healthy measure of envy because that should be fuel for you to be writing.
Right.
Now, again, okay, so where were we going with the idea horse? Oh, you were asking me.
Oh, so how do you keep track of this? When you have ideas so that they don't just die away forever, not even create it now or it'll die, where you're like, oh, I have this really good idea, but just these quick, fleeting, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if one word?
Yeah.
Or two, simple sentence. How do you keep track of that so that you have things to pull from when you sit in front of the...
I just tattoo them on my body. They'll be there forever.
Oh, memento kind of.
Memento kind of. I use a Google document. I use a Google Doc and just write them down because Google Docs are tied to my Google account, which means that even if my computer blew up and... Well, I don't have an end. Even if my computer blew up, I could still access it from somewhere else. I can access it on my phone, on my computer, on your computer, anywhere in the world that has internet, I can get to it.
Yes. Let me warn you, if your way of doing this is like, well, I keep notes on my phone. I have seen phones destroyed. I actually had a phone stolen of mine and didn't back up the notes and lost probably a year and a half of just those little seeds. That was one of the most devastating things, that in the photos.
Yeah, it was like...
I've also tried I'll email it to myself and have an email account. The problem with that is it's very cumbersome to search. It's very difficult. Whereas,
because if you don't remember what the idea was...
Right. And even then, if you want to type in keywords and stuff like that, you can. But then you got to click through,
find the email.
See all
right. Yeah.
So I suggest this to anyone out there. I suggest a Google Doc or multiple docs on your Google Drive. And don't... This is the perfect example to segue into what we mean by the minimum effective dosage. Don't try to invent a filing system before you even have anything to file.
Exactly.
Okay? So when I say this, we want to feel productive as creative people. So we say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Here we go. I'm going to take the next hour, and I'm going to make all these folders, and then I'm going to make these... Stop doing that. Minimum effective dosage. Is that the dose? Is that the medicine you need to solve the problem right now?
Exactly.
No.
It's not.
You just need to make one doc with your idea.
Just drop all the ideas in there. And then when you're like, oh man, these ideas are kind of different, make another doc and split those ideas out so that they're there only when you need to or if you feel that you need to.
Hold on. I need to make sure that there's a naming convention so that I could... No, you don't. Just name them something reasonable that you can kind of tell what it is.
Exactly. As long as you remember where they are, it shouldn't be a problem. And that sort of creates efficiency, and you won't spend that hour that, you could be writing making a filing system that, you'll never add to because you didn't make a habit of adding your ideas to your Google Doc.
Exactly. And so that's what I suggest. And so what do we mean by the minimum effective dosage when it comes to writing? Well, go and take your idea and let me pause that and say one final thing, because I talked about something called the idea net and then we didn't really hit on it. The idea net is that thing that you as a creative person are dragging around with you. And whether you're an artist, a writer, a composer, the idea net often will have things in it for a certain amount of time. And it's those things that capture you and make you go, oh, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to write a song like that. Or, oh, I'd love to paint a picture like that. Or, oh, that inspires me to do this, that, and the other. That's in your idea net. But most people just walk around and it's dragging behind them. And then it works its way out of the net. And it's left behind forever. So I try to do it daily or every other day. Kind of, okay, I got to throw this stuff in there. All right, okay, I have an idea for a druid for one of our supplements, but he's disconnected from the druidic way, sort of has become kind of a city folk. He's become a city folk. City slicka. And I want some terrible event from his personal life, from his family, to pull him back into the druidic life. That's what I want to do. Now, I can carry that around with me for a couple days, but then new things go in the net and push that out.
Yeah, eventually it will be gone.
So, I think one of the steps is making sure that you tend to that idea net. And that's probably a whole nother podcast, and et cetera, but making sure that you take those ideas, taking time to...
You got to write them down. Exactly. It sort of fits right into, you have to write them down.
You know what podcast that is?
Which podcast?
Our first episode. Right, create now or it'll die.
Yeah.
That's probably a middle step, is make sure you keep track of those seeds.
Exactly. And I think that's important Because, as we talked about, it's important to have something to start with when you begin writing or when you begin painting. And this solves some of the problems we talked about in the last episode, where you have to sit down and write. And sometimes you will sit there and not be sure what to write. But in order to sort of kickstart that process, hopefully you've been, doing the same thing. You've had this minimum effective dosage, taking little notes. I mean, you're not stopping in the middle of your workday to write a paragraph about this idea you had. Write down the most important stuff, whatever you can, cut whatever you can stand to lose from that idea so that it doesn't become unwieldy. So that you don't stop in the middle of this important email you're writing or this conference call you're on. You all work in offices, apparently. So that you have to, write this down. And again, it's that minimum effective dosage. A Google Doc, no filing system, doesn't matter. Just put it in there. And then when you begin writing, you're able to have something to write. And then the minimum effective dosage there, as we talked about, is writing. Trying not to edit. Putting notes to yourself. Putting things in there and making it clear right on the page that I don't like this, I'll change it later. That's fine. But you need to get it all out there in your time, in the time that you have.
Exactly. And I agree with like the way you just quantified it there would have been so helpful to me even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't realize that they're muddying up the different stages there are of getting the idea out of your head onto a page and then fixing it into a full formed idea.
Exactly.
So for me, the minimum effective dosage means exactly what we hit on before. All right, and I'm going to walk you through these steps that I think have really become my creative process. An idea is in my idea net. Like, oh, dude, wouldn't it be cool if there was sentient armor that slowly ate the wearer? That's it. So I go into my doc and I'm like, all right, sentient armor that slowly eats the wearer. Now, here's what I mean by minimum effective dosage. It is very easy to then say, oh, but why would it? If that comes easily to you, write it. If it stops you and makes you feel pain or you feel weird about it at this early in the game, don't worry about it.
And maybe contact your doctor.
Dr. Spachemin. Because here's where I think we muddy up in our own mind an idea that we don't like versus an idea that isn't ripe yet or hasn't become a seed, is we go, well, that's stupid. Why is it stupid? Because you didn't figure out the whole thing yet? Because
it's not even an idea yet.
It's not a fully blossomed tree. Take that, put it on the shelf, put it in the Google Drive. Then, okay, so that was the minimum effective dosage. Making sure that you write to the point to where you no longer have to press yourself or stress yourself or try hard. Then the minimum effective dosage when it's time. Okay, from 10 to 11 every night I write. All right, time to grab this piece about the sentient armor, drop it in there. All right, we're going to check it out here. And then you start writing. But remember the examples we were talking about before where you edit the name and you change this and that? It's not about that. It's just about fleshing out the idea and asking yourself some questions.
Exactly. Even if in the middle, you get 2 pages in and you're on a roll and you start changing his name from Tor to Tim, that's fine. Don't worry about going back to change it.
Nope.
Somebody will catch it later. You'll catch it later. It's going to be edited. Don't worry about it. You'll know. It'll be clear, so it's not important.
Right. And that actually brings up another really good point. So I'm writing this and I say, okay, sentient armor that eats the wearer. Now I pull that up and I start a new Google Doc with this idea, fleshing it out. If the only thing I have are questions, that's okay.
Exactly.
So I'm like, why does it eat the wearer? If I don't know that answer right away and it hasn't sort of come to me, I'm not going to stop and try to figure that out.
Yeah.
Wait until it sort of makes sense to you, because once the dam breaks, so to speak, you'll have that epiphany moment. So anyway, here's the thing. Why does it eat the wearer? ? How old is it? ? Whatever questions you start thinking of.
Yeah, why would a person put it on?
Right.
Does it walk around? Is it just something that somebody would find? And suddenly these questions are very quickly, for me, they become no longer questions.
You start going, oh, because of this, because of this. Now, what happens if two of those questions conflict? I put in brackets. That doesn't work, but I'll fix it later.
Exactly.
If there's things that don't make sense, or if I say the armor is ancient, and then before I say, well, it eats the wearer because it's newer, and the older armors learn not to eat their wearers, whatever. So the minimum effective dosage, what's going to get me there, is just making sure that I write and ask the questions, get fleshed out. Now here is where I think the magic starts happening. I do this for a couple of days.
Well, real writers,
go ahead.
They do the blood sacrifice to the writing god, right?
Oh man, we can't talk about it. The guild is going to kill us. Sorry guys, we're going to edit that part out.
Whoops.
Man, they're going to up our dues.
They're gonna really charge us $10 more this year. Okay, but sorry. So this is where the magic happens.
Well, yeah, because now I say, Tor, who's running down the hallway in the beginning. Now, don't forget, I just typed in Tor running down the hallway with a sphere. Well, if I combine two of those ideas together, I go, Tor isn't running down the hallway with a sphere. Tor's running down the hallway in a suit of that armor he just stole.
Bam.
And already I'm just thinking this out loud. He doesn't know it's going to eat him.
He has no idea, but he was probably escaping from somewhere, and it was the first thing he found.
Maybe he hid in the armor so he could stand along the wall like Scooby-Doo style.
Literally right, standing on the wall like Scooby-Doo style. Because the next time you read it, you'll think, oh, that was good.
Can I tell you that I do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know why? Because analogies, anachronisms, that stuff, it gets me there faster. And in this process, that's actually a really good point. The minimum effective dosage is whatever you're thinking about.
You're not like, oh, well, what would you call that? Not Scooby-Doo style. I'm like, no, Scooby-Doo style.
I would
They're
totally
running down the hallway through suddenly the ghouls in front of them on the next round.
Hold on, though. The Writers Guild is going to come to your house, they're going to see that doc, and they're going to say that you're not a real writer because you used those goofy words, James.
Because you wrote Scooby-Doo style.
And I can tell you that, like I said, we're part of the indie publishing company, Absolute Tabletop, and you should see our first drafts of these docs. Oh, gosh. Because it's just about getting the idea out. So I'll say things like that. I'll be like, yeah, and then these suits of armor, or, let's say it's a glowing ghost, Scooby-Doo style, add in some...
a cool description here.
Scott Pilgrim saves the world DJ battle.
Yeah.
Because immediately you go, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I'm there. You're not like, you don't try to explain, you're not reinventing the wheel.
Right, that's the minimum effective dosage to get the job done right then. Now, is there going to be a time where I have to actually flesh that out and write it? Yeah, but by muddying up parts of the process,
the phases,
it becomes challenging to stay on task. And I used to try to do that.
Yeah.
I think, it's like Scott Pilgrim saves the world. Let me walk you through. Let me give you a day in the life of some of you listeners. I want it to be like Scott Pilgrim saves the world in the DJ battle. I better go watch that DVD. I'll just put it on that one scene. Or I better look it up on YouTube. Or I'm going to go to the wiki and see how they describe it. Don't do all that.
It's the writing time. It is not Wikipedia time. Watch Scott Pilgrim some other time. It is a good idea to think, you know what, I really want to write this scene and I want it to be, I want it to really be like that. I should watch that when I'm not writing.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I wish someone would have told me this a while back.
Exactly. So that is roughly the minimum effective dosage, at least as it applies to us in writing. And it's just all about doing the least amount for the most amount. You could go in, and you have done this, and you still exist, and you still have written things. You could...
Says you.
You could try your best and make sure that when you write that first sentence about Tor, that you know what his name is, and you know that there's a sphere or it's a sword. And we're not saying that won't work, but I can promise that if you don't worry about it, you will get more done. And, it comes down to style to some degree, but having a place to start, I made multiple jokes, even to the point of confusing Tim about real writers, that I used to worry so much about what other people did. I wonder how Stephen King writes. I wonder how Ernest Hemingway writes. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. I'm interested in those things.
Right.
But it's not the way they wrote that made them good writers. It's the fact that they wrote. They wrote something and that they didn't worry about it and that they were efficient. It had nothing to do with the fact that he liked to do it with whiskey in a pub, or if Stephen King liked to do it in the middle of the night when nobody was awake. It doesn't matter. Neither of those things are true, but
it might be.
It might be. No. Could very well be. But the idea being this in your whole life, but especially for us creatively, this minimum effort to get the maximum output is something that changes a lot and will hopefully make you a better writer, painter, composer. For some reason, that's one Tim brought up.
Well, because I was thinking songwriter before, and I was like, I don't know. So
could be. You're like, no, we want to give some love to the composers out there.
Yeah, man. Songwriter, musician.
If you're an air, poet, what do they call those things?
Air guitar?
No, that's a good one.
If you're an air guitarist?
I was thinking the skywriter. If you're a skywriter, minimum effort for maximum output.
I got to learn how to bank this biplane, or else I can't spell I love you. So I think we'll wrap up this part of the podcast with saying one of the ones. Oh, see, we're so eloquent.
Two of the threes.
One of the things I really want you to focus on if you're listening to this for the minimum effective dosage is your time. How much time should you be spending on something? And once you write that blurb, so we talked about, you took it out of the idea for Sentient Armor. You put it in your Google Doc.
Barn, horse
barn. The ox cart. You took it off the shelf. You started kind of writing it. Okay, boom. You spent your time on it. You asked yourself some questions. You got yourself maybe, a good half page, depending on your resolution. Now, unless you're purposefully inspired, unless something just strikes you and you really feel like you need to write, it's time to let that idea rest, I think. Let it...
Sit on the cutting board for 5 minutes like a steak.
There you go.
Because this is another analogy. No, but seriously, that is one of the best ways for me. Forgetting about an idea that is that fleshed out is one of my favorite ways to be inspired. When you inspire yourself, if that hasn't happened to you before, it is one of the greatest feelings in the world. Because I have written like I've never written before. When I thought, oh my God, I wrote this? That is amazing. Look at all these cool ideas I have now.
Exactly.
And it's all because I had an idea net in the ox cart for the seed barn.
That's it.
No, but it seems so simple. But like you said, Tim, I wish somebody would have told me that before. It is simple now, but I wish that I knew it then.
Right. Well, because it's simple now because I went through the pain of figuring it out.
Exactly.
Over, hours of laboring over this doc about Sentient Armor, saying, I gotta beat something out of this. I just don't have any good ideas. I'm a bad writer. It's like, no. Seeds take time to grow. Exactly. I know there's a billion analogies in here, but I take that doc and I set it aside, and then I work on another one.
Yeah.
Because I've got stuff in the idea net all the time. Come on, guys and girls. The idea net's full. You got all kinds of stuff in there. Take one of those out, put it in a minimum effective dosage so that your shelf is full, and then write up another page on, wouldn't it be cool if green flames in our world represented sort of this evil deity coming back to life, into existence. And it hasn't happened for a long time, but recently someone said that they saw green flames in the kingdom, at one of the ceremonies.
Exactly.
Boom. And that's all I have.
Because, again, the important part is, back last episode, sit your butt in the chair and write, or wherever it is that you write. Just write. But this one is, okay, make sure that you have something to write, and it doesn't matter if it's the same thing or a different idea, or if it's not what you worked on last week. It's fine. Another sort of myth, I think, is that when writers write, they sit down and they just write from beginning to end, every chapter, the whole book. Like Stephen King, I'm working on a book, or a better example is George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
Better example.
What?
Patrick Rothfuss.
Oh, buddy.
I am still waiting on the third book in his series to come out, and I saw that he released a book recently, and it was a book about, in the stuff he's written, it was a shorter book about like someone else's perspective of it. And I'm like, that guy's not just sitting there every day writing the same third part in this series. He wrote an entirely new book about the same thing and released that first.
Because do you know why? Because as this grows and as it becomes more and more expounded and as it becomes more compounded, he's got to be thinking his idea net is now lingering in his entire worlds.
Exactly.
So he's now inspired by this random idea of like, oh, well, what would it sound like from this person's perspective?
And I don't know the whole story, but I have a good feeling that he sat down to write one day, and instead of the next part, he was like, oh, what would this be like for this person?
Exactly.
And he wrote, and then he calls his editor like, hey, I know I have a deadline on that other book, but I have this other one that I
accidentally
wrote
a novel.
Yeah, I kind of tripped over and wrote this one. So
that's what you do. Try to follow that process. I know it was clear as mud, but the idea is that once you're done with that paragraph or two, or fill that half page, depending on your resolution.
I love that you gotta slip that in each time.
Then take it and let it sit for a week, or until you're inspired by it again. Because when you pull it up next week, you'll have new influences, new ideas in the net, and you're like, oh. The other thing I've learned is when I look back, I know what I don't like.
Yeah.
So when I look back, I'm like, oh, I never would do it that way. The thing I was most excited about sometimes, I'm like, oh, that's a stupid name.
Exactly. You're like, immediately you know. It's like
So-
when you couldn't beat the boss and you tried 5 times in that video game and you come back 2 weeks later like, what was I doing with my life? This was so easy.
Right? Boom, boom, three-hitter
thing.
quitter.
Same thing, except you created something afterward.
Exactly. So that's the minimum effective dosage. I think we're going to stop this part of the podcast, though, because I think we're going to break our own rule if we go any further.
It's true.
So it's time to move on to the next segment of the podcast where we basically talk about whatever our creative conundrums are and talk it out, hoping to help people who are listening. I think for me, the biggest issue I'm having with creatively is, so we work, like I said, so we're part of the company Absolute Tabletop, and we work on multiple supplements. So, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons supplements. Some of them are system agnostic and stuff like that. I feel like I'm coming to a place where and this is not something that I've ever had to deal with before, but my productivity and my schedule is working very well.
Yeah.
But the amount that I want to get done is outgrowing the time that I have.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, it's like, duh, Tim, we're all struggling with that, so get a life. But, I mean, what I'm saying is, you Valley girls out there, Valley men, Valley people, what I'm saying is, I feel like I'm being diligent. I'm following the schedule. I'm not chasing my tail. I'm using the minimum effective dosage. But I'm in this limbo where I still have my day job. I am
Tim
using...
Limbos as a day job.
That's I'm... Like
Hard
Hermes from Futurama. So what I'm saying is that I'm kind of in this in-between where I'm not ready financially. I couldn't make the leap to doing, YouTube and Absolute Tabletop full-time. But I'm maxed out. But the ideas, I feel like, are coming more than ever. So I don't know, I guess most people are like, it's like I'm complaining. It's like, I'm complaining that I'm rich and the taxes are too high.
Well, and I think I see where you're coming from, but I don't. So I think that
I need to listen to my own advice.
a little bit, but I would say less than that. I think that it's important to do your best not to worry that you're not writing as much as you are coming up with ideas, because I feel like that is an impossible feat to come against. Because before, you had the same problems. You're like, all right, I got to make sure my schedule is right, and I write for these 2 hours, whatever. And now you're doing that, and you have the same problem. I don't think that's a thing that ever goes away. There's actually a thing that happens, and I think a lot of people don't realize it. But everybody, I wouldn't say is living paycheck to paycheck, but most people, whether lower class or middle class or upper middle class, don't have that much money. And it's because of a thing, I forgot the exact phrase, but somebody referred to it as like money bloat, or I forgot what it was. But the idea is, as you continue making more money, if you make more money and you get a raise at your job, or you suddenly come into a lot of money, well, you suddenly start spending a lot more money, and everything feels like it hasn't changed. It doesn't matter that you got more money, and it doesn't matter that you can look back and think, man, I used to live on only X amount, and now I have twice that.
Right.
How do I still not have money? Well, you have a nice new car, and your house is a little bigger, and you decided to splurge and buy yourself an iPad.
Right. And you eat, and even the small killer where it's like, I eat out at restaurants every night, whereas before it was only once a week.
Exactly. Or, what you're not remembering about before is that, well, there were some nights you didn't have food because you were in college and you couldn't afford anything but ramen. It's like, I feel like the same thing applies, because you're saying, okay, well, I wish that I could get more done. And it's the sort of thing where, well, I don't think that it would help you any to do any of what you're doing less, to try and feel like you got more done. I feel
Sure.
like you're
Yeah,
getting
makes sense.
more done than you ever have based on what it sounds like.
Right.
And I feel like you and anyone listening, it's important to realize, listen, I'm getting a lot done, and that's okay because it's scheduled. You could try and fit another hour in, but I guarantee you that if you found the time and spent it, you would think, man, I wish I could fit another hour in.
You're right. And I also don't know what pulling it back to the topic, I didn't even do this on purpose, but I think maybe, what if it's a sweet spot? What if there's diminishing returns?
And I really think there is. That's like you said, the whole topic is if you did say, I'll have another hour or another 2 hours or whatever it is, however much you're working and you added more, eventually, I think that as people, as human beings, you hit a point where you can't be as effective. You might be able to write for 2, 3, 4 hours, but eventually, whether that's short time for you or a long amount of time for you, it's not going to come as freely.
Yeah.
If you're not, we're talking about this, we're making this podcast because we have come a long way, but we're not perfect at it, and we're certainly not experts. I would say that, in 2 years, we might be making this podcast and talking about things that we wish we knew now.
Let's hope.
I feel like it's important to realize that and think, well, I'm happy about what I'm doing now. What can I try and do to make it better? But in the same respect, to realize, hey, I can't, it's not effective for me to do it.
Yeah. And I think I would find things to fill the time.
Yeah.
I would start going against this advice we're giving, and it was like, before I knew it, I'd be like, all right, well, I've got another hour, so I'm going to redo all our YouTube thumbnails.
Exactly.
And you see, there's a phrase that I recently heard on, it was Tim Schmoyer, who's a guy who's about like YouTubing or growing a YouTube channel. And it was one of his live streams, and the phrase they kept throwing around in this live stream, it was him and multiple other YouTubers, and is the squeeze worth the juice?
Yeah.
And I thought that's a really good way to put it, because they were talking specifically about how they were going to subtitle their videos, and they think that that's really good.
Yeah.
But then how much do you, how far do you take that? And,
Exactly.
and one person was saying, well, what I've done is I found that I've subtitled my videos in an entirely different language, and I've gotten X amount of viewers. And then they started doing the math and said, well, okay, you spend this much, you spend, I think it's like $100 for a 30-minute video for someone to translate well from English to Spanish. Then he uploads that, and then it gets X amount of views and X amount, and it's like, is all that worth it?
Exactly. Is that money, or in our case, is our time worth what we're getting out of it? Or should we just start over and, instead of, if we were, say, subtitling our own videos, should we subtitle existing videos to hope to get a few more viewers? Or should we spend that time making a new video?
Exactly. And that's where I feel like I would find things to fill in the time. So, yeah, I think that's going to help me. Because right now, we're slowly working on our campaign guidebook, Dead Man's Guide to Dragon Grin, our campaign setting for D&D 5e. But in addition to that, we're also working on the upcoming release. We're doing Stone Rift, which is about the dwarves of Matt Click's world of Aranoth. And for me, I think we also have something that a lot of people don't have the benefit of, and it's being able to work on other people's stuff.
Yeah.
So this coming week, I'm going to be editing Matt's work.
Exactly.
Like, adding stuff in there, making comments. That's another thing I love about Google Docs is you can use comments and you can use suggestion mode.
For yourself and for others.
Sure.
So in the same way as if I'm writing and I want to make a note to myself, if I think it looks a little prettier, I'll do that using the Google Docs system where I can highlight something and put a comment so that it's a little easier, and it's so much easier to find the comments because
Exactly.
they're all along the right. Google Docs also tracks revisions, which is amazing. Again, for yourself or for others, if you think, man, what was this before? Because I think I liked it more. You can just go back and check it out. But you brought up something, and working on other people's work. And I think that, in general, we are a little bit lucky in that respect, that we're not always creating stuff from scratch and saying, what do you think? It's sort of a different muscle. It's a different workout to say, okay, somebody made this. What would you do to gussy it up, to make it a little better, to make the tone fit a little more? It's I don't know. I feel like we've had a million analogies, but you're not washing and detailing the car. You're just coming along with the wax.
Sure.
And you're like, hey,
And
you
that-
did a lot of the hard work, but I'm going to make this thing shine.
That's actually a really good way to put it, because what it does is it allows me also to just be a tourist, and he did all the hard work. He did all the stuff we talked about in the podcast before. He did all that, and now he has this doc, and what I get to do is go in there, read it, enjoy it, say like, oh, that's actually really cool, and then go, oh, I don't like this word. I don't know. So I get to do the part where he did all the heavy lifting. I just get to go in there and tweak and, like you said, wax the car.
Exactly.
Which, that's kind of hard to wax a car. Maybe we'll make it like you just shine the rims or something.
It is quite a process to wax, but it's like that ending touch that just makes it. Now we're just talking about waxing cars. This is not important. I'm sorry.
But I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
So
you get to come along after, like you said, all the hard work's done. Assuming that waxing the car is easy. It's not, okay? I'm sorry. Bad analogy.
No, I'm not editing any
It's
of this out.
falling
We never
apart.
edit
No,
this.
that's
It's always just what it is, because that's what we want it to be, real gut level. But
Yeah.
that helps me. I hope it helps all of you. If you're listening and this is kind of pointless, I think this is also a good time to say that if you have something creatively that's vexing you, you can send it to us. And we have a catch-all email, so I like to come up with fun stuff. And they do get through. People ask me, are you sure this went through? Like I told one guy to send it to rootbeer@tabletopterrors.com. It comes through. So you can send it to Mo Money, Mo Problems. No, you can send it to whatever you want at tabletopterrors.com. One word, no hyphens or spaces. And if you're having a problem you want us to go over, if you know, this is about learning and creating, and we'll continue to do this. But like, if you're having a creative conundrum, maybe we can go into that.
Yeah, or specifically, I think, if there's something that you want us to cover that maybe we don't realize isn't common knowledge, I think that is one of the biggest, to use the word Tim loves, fallacies, again, of real writers or in general people, is that I take for granted what I know now, even though I look back and think, man, I wish I had known it then.
Yeah.
So if you have questions of how do you do this, how do you do that, that's what I would personally love to hear, because if we have advice on it and we can help you, I wish that I knew somebody that I could just email and say, hey, how do I become a writer? And they would tell me, they would do a whole 30-minute podcast, 30-minute section of their podcast with like, this is how you do it.
Right.
We'd love to hear it. That's what I would love to hear from you.
Totally. So I think in the nature of the topic, I think we should end it there.
I think so.
Just the minimum effective dosage, just boom. And so thanks for listening. If you are listening to this on Podbean or iTunes, be sure to subscribe to the feed or follow us so that you see all the upcoming episodes as they become live. If you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, I've had multiple people ask, well, can I watch it? Or not, can I watch it? I'm watching it on YouTube. Can I listen to this on one of the other services? Absolutely. We are purposefully trying to spread this as far as we can so that people can listen at their leisure in their preferred method.
Yeah.
But reviews help us out. So if you want to review this on iTunes, then that would be awesome. Be honest but fair. And thanks for listening. The response has been tremendous. I didn't know how this was going to go. I didn't know if it'd be valuable or if people would like it, but
Yeah.
It's been overwhelming. People have just been positive and saying that it's helping them a lot, and it's helping us a lot.
Exactly.
And that's what's
fantastic. It helps to
fantastic.
just talk through it, usually, or
Yeah.
a lot of times.
So if you're interested in tabletop RPGs at all as well, check out absolutetabletop.com. That's our publishing company. We have supplements up there that we've written ourselves. And be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, because we do fun, very fun-loving. It's a lot more freeform and goofy than this.
Yeah.
Very fun-loving RPG inspiration videos. And we're for players of all experience levels, but we love to just talk. We love hanging out. So come on over, and we're just really glad that you're taking the time to listen. So I guess until next time, may your dice roll high.
Oh.